your overhead story channel. Let's go.
That morning started like any other, tired, late, and too quiet. I'd just gotten off a 14-hour night shift and was supposed to pick April up so we could head to her cousin's engagement party an hour out of town. I texted her when I parked in front of her apartment, let her know I was outside. She said she needed a few minutes. That was 40 minutes before she actually came down. I was too exhausted to be annoyed though. My eyes were already shutting before the second song on the playlist finished. I climbed into the back seat, figuring I'd stretch out and get a little rest. The back of my neck was sticky from the collar of my scrubs, and all I could think about was lying down for even 10 minutes. Just 10. I'd have taken 2. So I let myself drift off, not thinking much about anything, not the party, not April being late again, not even how distant she'd been lately. I must have been half asleep when she finally came down. I heard the doors unlock, her footsteps quick and light on the pavement, the familiar click of the door opening, then the soft beep of the car starting up. She slid into the driver's seat, tossed her bag into the passenger side, and didn't say a word. She didn't even glance back. She didn't know I was there. And then it happened. The Bluetooth connected automatically. A beat passed. Then came the voice. Male. Smooth. Low. Familiar in that way you can't explain, like hearing someone talk in your kitchen who shouldn't be there. Morning, beautiful, the voice said, casual and confident. Missed hearing your voice. I froze. April giggled. Giggled. Not laughed, that soft, flirty giggle that sounded more like who she was with me 2 years ago. You're terrible, she said in a voice I hadn't heard in months. You know I have a thing for deep voices in the morning. She sounded happy. Not performative, not polite, just happy. Effortlessly happy. The way people sound when they think no one else is listening. A pause. A rustle on the other end of the line. Maybe he was saying something else, but we never got to hear it. April caught the name on the dashboard screen and then, I guess, she caught me. She turned slowly like someone checking for a ghost in the mirror. Our eyes met in the rear view. And for a second, neither of us moved. It was like the air got *ket out of the car. She looked like she'd seen a ghost, or worse, someone she forgot existed. I just stared at her. No expression. I didn't trust my face to do anything else. She fumbled to end the call. Her fingers slipped on the screen. She tapped 3 times before it disconnected, then the car fell silent except for her breathing and the thrum of the engine. Her expression shifted fast, fear to performance in under 3 seconds. A smile forced itself onto her face. Tight, thin, crooked. Oh my God, she said with a nervous laugh. I didn't even see you there. You scared the crap out of me. She reached for the rearview mirror and adjusted it as if that explained anything. Then she pulled her hair behind her ear and added, too brightly, that was just Josh from work. You remember Josh? We did that Zoom fundraiser with him back in March? He's always joking around. Totally harmless. She looked back at me like she expected me to play along, laugh it off, say something that would reset the clock. I didn't say anything. Because here's the thing, it wasn't just the call. It was the way she sounded. The warmth in her voice. The ease. The way she used to sound when she said my name at the end of a long day. That voice hadn't been for me in a long time, I just hadn't wanted to admit it. She kept talking, her voice high and cheerful. He always calls on Saturdays, usually about work stuff. But he's harmless. He's just got one of those personalities, you know? Flirty without meaning it. I stayed quiet. Something in her smile started to crack. She shifted into reverse and pulled out of the parking space like that would push the moment away. You look tired, she said suddenly. Did you sleep at all last night? Some, I answered. She nodded quickly, looking straight ahead now. Her hands gripped the wheel a little tighter than normal. You should have knocked when you got here. I didn't realize you were already in the car. Seriously, you scared me. You seem busy. That one landed. I saw it hit her in the side of the face like a flick. She cleared her throat, adjusted the AC, changed the music. Just catching up before the party, she said as if she were talking to herself. You know how work's been. Everyone's been on edge. I didn't respond. Because I wasn't confused. I wasn't looking for an explanation. I wasn't waiting for an apology or denial. I knew exactly what had just happened, not just the phone call, but the whole thing. It was the context, the tone, the history, the timing. The emotional distance that had crept into our relationship over the last few months wasn't random anymore. It had a shape now. A voice. I replayed that voice in my head, trying to place it. I didn't recognize the name, but I'd heard that kind of voice before, confident, casual, someone used to being on the inside. Someone who doesn't need introductions. I wanted to ask her when it started. How long? Who he was. But the truth was I didn't need the answers. The silence between us was saying more than words ever could. April kept talking as we merged onto the highway. Something about the party, the traffic, her cousin's new fiancé being awkward. She kept throwing words into the air like distractions, hoping one would stick. I watched the road pass by. The buildings, the signs, the turns we always took together. But everything felt different now. Dimmer. Like I was watching my own life through tinted glass. I thought about the small signs I'd ignored. The phone always face down. The new perfume. Her sudden interest in evening workouts. Her laugh when she got texts late at night, the one she never shared with me anymore. I chalked it all up to stress, burnout, maybe us just being in a rut. But hearing that voice in our car, with that tone, her tone erased all the excuses. It wasn't just a mistake. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was confirmation. The kind that doesn't need further investigation. The kind that doesn't scream. It whispers. I didn't ask any more questions on the drive. I didn't raise my voice or demand answers. I didn't accuse. I just sat there, listening to the road, watching her fidget with the air vents and volume knob, pretending everything was normal. Because it wasn't normal. And we both knew it. When we pulled into the driveway at her aunt's house, she led the engine, turned toward me, and hesitated. You okay? She asked softly. I nodded. You sure? Yeah. But I wasn't. Not really. Because from that moment on, I knew something had shifted in me. Something final. It wasn't just that I didn't trust her. It was that I no longer felt like I knew the person sitting in front of me. And the worst part? I wasn't even surprised. After that morning, something in me changed. I wish I could say I confronted her right away, demanded answers, or walked away like they do in movies. But the truth is, I didn't. Not immediately. I didn't blow up. I didn't throw accusations. I didn't even bring it up. I just watched, observed, and started paying attention to all the things I hadn't allowed myself to before. The signs had been there. Looking back, they weren't even subtle, just small enough, spread out enough that they could be excused, dismissed, justified. And that's exactly what I did. Over and over again. It started slowly. A few months back, she began waking up earlier than usual. April was never a morning person. We used to joke about her needing a full pot of coffee just to form a sentence. But then she started setting alarms at 6, sometimes 5:30. She said she was going on morning walks to clear her head. Helps with anxiety, she'd tell me. I believed her. She started staying out later too. Not dramatically, just enough to create distance. Late meetings, client dinners, networking events. She always had a reason, and I didn't question them because why would I? She'd never given me a reason not to trust her. At least, I thought she hadn't. Her wardrobe changed next. April had always dressed well, but comfortably. Hoodies, leggings, that sort of thing. Then one day, I noticed her wearing clothes I hadn't seen before, tight-fitting blouses, sharp skirts, heels that looked more club than conference. She said she was dressing more professionally now that she was trying to climb the ladder. Again, I believed her. Her phone became a constant companion. She used to leave it everywhere, the kitchen, the bathroom, the couch. Now it was always on her. Always locked. Always face down. When I'd walk into a room, I'd see the glow of a screen vanish like a ghost. If it buzzed, she'd glance at it quickly and say, "Just work." One night, while folding laundry, I found something. Buried under her old workout tops in the bottom of a drawer. A lace bodysuit. Price tag still attached. Brand new. The kind of thing I had never seen her wear. Not for me. Not ever. I remember holding it in my hands, staring at the tag, wondering who it was really for. When I asked her about it, she didn't flinch. Just laughed. Oh my God. That thing? It was a gag gift from the girls at work. Some bridal party joke. I forgot I even had it. She said it so casually that I almost believed her. Almost. She started traveling more. At first, it was a quarterly trip to L.A. for training. Then it became monthly. Then twice a month. Always the same excuse: conferences, team-building retreats, creative intensives. Sometimes I'd offer to pick her up from the airport. She'd always say no, that she was grabbing a ride with coworkers. She'd come back looking different, lighter, relaxed, like someone who had just come back from vacation. Not work. Her scent changed too. April used to wear this soft floral perfume, subtle, familiar. Then one day it was gone, replaced with something heavier. Muskier, the kind of scent that clung to skin and clothes and stayed long after she was gone. I asked her about it once. Oh, it's just a sample I got from a boutique in L.A. Trying something new. She brushed it off like she did everything else. And I let her, because part of me didn't want to deal with the implications. I kept telling myself maybe I was imagining things. That maybe this was just who April was evolving into. A woman finding her confidence, embracing her independence. Maybe I was the problem. Maybe I was insecure, tired, paranoid from work stress. It's a dangerous thing, gaslighting yourself. Convincing yourself your gut is wrong. That your instincts don't matter. That what you feel can't be trusted. But I knew something was off. The warmth was gone. Her touch, when it happened at all, felt mechanical. Her eyes didn't linger anymore. When we talked, it was always about logistics, bills, groceries, errands. The real stuff, the connective stuff, had gone silent. I noticed she started wearing makeup even when she said she wasn't going anywhere. Just trying to feel put together, she'd say. I nodded. I didn't say that I missed her the way she used to be. Effortless, natural, comfortable around me. It was around this time that I started writing things down. Little things. Times she left. Places she said she'd be. Things that felt off. I wasn't trying to build a case. Not yet. But I needed to see the pattern laid out in front of me. There was the Wednesday she said she was working late. But her shared calendar was empty. There was the Saturday she said she was at brunch with coworkers. But she came home at dusk, tipsy and glowing. There were texts she didn't know I saw. Previews that popped up before her screen locked. Names I didn't recognize. One that stuck out, Jay. Always Jay. There was the time I opened her tablet, the one we both used occasionally. It had recently been reset, all history cleared. All apps signed out. It had never been reset before. She said it must have updated automatically. At some point, I stopped sleeping soundly. I started waking up in the middle of the night and staring at the ceiling, wondering if I was losing my mind. Wondering if I was the only one in the relationship who still felt like we were in it. I stopped asking where she was going. I stopped texting when she was gone too long. I stopped kissing her goodnight when she climbed into bed after midnight. Because I didn't want to hear the lies anymore. And I think deep down she didn't want to say them either. We became ghosts living in the same house. Two people going through the motions. The worst part wasn't even the betrayal, not yet. It was the realization that I had been so thoroughly replaced. And she hadn't even thought to tell me. I started noticing things she didn't. Receipts left in her coat pocket. Dry cleaning tags from places we didn't use. Subtle changes in her routine that no longer aligned with what she told me. The toothpaste on her side of the sink was a different brand. She'd switched shampoos, too. Something expensive and distinctly masculine smelling. It all pointed to something deliberate. It was no longer about drifting apart. This was something curated, managed, covered up. She had already stepped out of the relationship emotionally, physically, and I'd only just found the door ajar. One day, while she was in the shower, her phone lit up on the nightstand. I didn't touch it. I didn't have to. A message preview flashed across the screen. Had a dream about you last night. Can't wait to see you again. No name. Just a number. She never saw me read it. I didn't flinch. I didn't ask. I didn't even mention it when she came back into the room. Because by then I didn't need her to tell me the truth. I already had it. All of it. And that truth was building inside me slowly, quietly, like water rising behind a dam. Sooner or later it was going to break. I didn't sleep the night after the message. I lay there in the guest room, yeah, that's where I'd been sleeping lately ever since April started working late nights and coming home with the scent of strange cologne and hotel laundered sheets, and stared at the ceiling fan as it turned, slowly and methodically, as if mocking how stagnant everything had become. She had gone out that evening. Another professional retreat, this time a full weekend with her coworkers at some wellness lodge in the foothills. I didn't argue. I didn't even ask which friend she was going with. I already knew the answer wouldn't be real. I kept telling myself I wasn't going to check up on her. That I didn't care anymore. That I had all the evidence I needed, the half-truths, the late nights, the Bluetooth call that started it all, and that I didn't need to see anymore. But that night, I couldn't help myself. I sat in the living room, still in the same shirt I'd worn for 2 days, and stared at the TV without registering anything. Background noise. The world outside was quiet, and I felt like I was the only one still awake. At around 10:45, I picked up my keys. It wasn't a decision. It was instinct. A pull in my chest I couldn't ignore. Something in me said, go. Now. She had told me she was staying at her friend Melissa's place, the one she always claimed as her alibi. I knew where Melissa lived. I drove there first. The house was dark. Lights off. Porch empty. No sign of life. Her car wasn't there either. I parked across the street for a while just to make sure I wasn't being paranoid. 15 minutes passed. Nothing changed. And that's when I knew. This wasn't work. This wasn't stress. This wasn't just a friend. This was deliberate. Calculated. Planned. And I needed to see it for myself. So I drove. I didn't know where I was going at first. I just followed instinct, making turns without thinking. I remembered a name I'd heard once, subtle, almost tossed away. She'd mentioned a coastal rental one night while scrolling through her phone in bed. I didn't think anything of it then. But now it rang in my head like a bell. There was a gated neighborhood off Route 76, tucked behind a grove of eucalyptus trees and shielded from the road by high hedges. I'd driven past it 100 times and never thought twice. People rented quiet cabins there, weekend escapes, honeymooners, artists on sabbatical. The kind of place where no one asks questions and everything smells like cedar and candle wax. As I turned onto the narrow drive leading into the complex, my stomach dropped. Her car was there. Right in front of a small, 2-story rental cottage, silver under the streetlight. Same dent on the passenger side door. Same university bumper sticker. No mistaking it. I pulled over 2 houses down. Parked in the shadows. Shut off my headlights. Sat in silence. The air was thick even for a summer night. I felt every heartbeat in my throat. The cottage had one front window lit upstairs. Second floor. The curtains were thin enough to make out movement. I adjusted in my seat, leaning slightly toward the windshield. And there she was. April. Wearing a tank top and sweatpants, the casual, in asterisk mate kind of outfit she never wore around me anymore. She was holding a wine glass, walking slowly, barefoot. Her hair was pulled back. She looked at ease. And then he appeared. Tall. Dark hair. T-shirt, no shoes. He walked up behind her, slid his arm around her waist, and kissed the side of her neck like it was second nature. She didn't flinch. She didn't stop him. She leaned into it. The light from the window was soft, golden, like something out of a catalog. They looked like a couple on vacation. Comfortable. Familiar. Like they'd done this 100 times before. I saw her laugh at something he said. She touched his chest lightly, then curled up on the couch beside him, legs over his lap like she used to do with me. Like it was theirs now. And that was enough. I didn't stay to see more. Didn't need to watch them kiss. Didn't need to see if they went to bed together. The in asterisk Macy was already there, not just in their bodies, but in their habits. The unspoken closeness. The kind of comfort that doesn't happen by accident. I sat back in my car and stared out into the dark for a long while. No anger. Not really. Not yet. Just stillness. Numbness. You think you'll fall apart in moments like that. Scream. Cry. Rage. But I didn't. Because deep down I'd already known. This was just the confirmation. The final image. I started the car, slow and quiet, and drove away without looking back. Back home, the house felt colder than usual. I walked in, locked the door, and stood in the foyer, listening to the silence press in from every direction. I wanted to tear something apart. Break a plate. Yell into the void. But I didn't. Instead, I went to the kitchen. Made coffee. And sat at the table like it was any other night. I didn't sleep again. Just sat there, cup after cup, watching the sky lighten through the window. Morning came, soft and indifferent, and I still hadn't moved. She texted me around 7 a.m., heading to yoga. Might grab brunch with Mel after. Don't wait up. I stared at the screen for a long time. The lie was so casual. So automatic. Like it cost her nothing. And that more than anything else is what broke me. Not the cheating. Not the wine or the waist touching or the private cottage or the Bluetooth call that started this spiral. But the ease with which she could lie to my face. The way she could look at me every day and pretend we were fine. Sleep beside me. Eat dinner across from me. Talk about laundry and mortgage payments and weekend plans. All while giving her real self to someone else. I realized then that she hadn't just been lying to me. She'd been lying as me. Living a life with me on the surface while building a second one underneath. Like a stage set with a hollow foundation. Like I'd been acting in a play she already knew the ending to. And I was done being the last one to read the script. The thing about betrayal is that it doesn't always break you in the moment. It doesn't always crash through your chest like some violent wreck. Sometimes it seeps in quietly like water under a floorboard. You don't notice the damage until you're already hollowed out. After that night, after seeing April in that cottage, laughing with him like she belonged there, something inside me simply shut off. Not dramatically. No breakdown. No yelling. No accusations. Just a switch flipping. The love, the concern, the pain, all of it dulled to silence. I stopped asking questions. Stopped waiting for answers that weren't coming. Instead, I started planning. The next morning, she came home around 10, humming softly as she entered the house. She called out a casual, "Morning, babe," like nothing was off. Like she hadn't spent the night curled into someone else. She walked in with a pressed smoothie, yoga mat under her arm, and a breezy kind of glow on her face. The kind that used to come after beach days or long hikes together. I was sitting at the kitchen table, sipping coffee, laptop open. I didn't look up. She paused. I heard the hesitation in her footsteps when she saw I hadn't gone to work. "You're off today?" she asked, walking toward the fridge. "Yep." "You didn't say anything." I shrugged. "Switch shifts." She nodded slowly and opened the fridge like it required deep concentration. I watched her from the corner of my eye, the way she fidgeted with the juice bottle, too aware of my presence. She kept waiting for me to say something. To start something. To challenge her. But I didn't. Because I had already started the process. That day, I opened a new bank account in a credit union one town over. Quiet. Secure. No shared access. I began moving small amounts of money over, nothing noticeable. Just a few hundred here, a refund there, small transfers that could be brushed off as auto-pay or shopping. I booked a short-term lease on a small apartment in Santa Fe. Furnished. Month to month. It wasn't glamorous, it didn't need to be. I just needed space. Somewhere she wouldn't think to look. Somewhere that felt like mine. I ordered new keys. Rerouted my mail. She didn't notice any of it. Or maybe she did and didn't care to ask. I started keeping a digital folder backed up on the cloud, encrypted. Inside, I uploaded photos I'd taken of the rental cottage, **TS of her texts, flight receipts that contradicted her stories. I used an old iPad she'd forgotten she once synced to her phone. It still had cloud access. Most of the time it updated in the background, pulling photos and locations from her work trips. I found albums labeled Inspo Weekend and Creative Reset. There were no conference halls. No business attire. Just boutique hotel rooms, poolside cocktails, and candid selfies with him. His name was Leo. I found it in the metadata of a photo she didn't crop. His badge, company name, and all visible in the mirror behind her. From there, everything else unraveled fast. I searched social media, found his LinkedIn, his Instagram. Married. 2 kids. Worked in digital strategy. His feed was mostly work stuff and beach **TS, but the last photo of his family was over a year old. He was good at keeping April off his grid. But she wasn't as careful. In one post from 5 months ago, she tagged a wine bar in Los Angeles, one I'd never heard of. She was posing with a charcuterie board, wine glass in hand. Just her in frame. But behind her, blurred in the mirror, was the side of Leo's face. His hand on her thigh. I didn't react. I just *****ed it. Added it to the folder. I never intended to expose her, not publicly. This wasn't about revenge. It was about clarity. Precision. Leaving no room for denial. The more I pulled back, the less she seemed to notice. Or maybe she noticed everything and just pretended not to. That's the thing about drifting apart. Once it starts, both people quietly agree to stop looking at the gaps. I moved into the guest room permanently. She didn't ask why. She stopped waiting for me to come to bed. Stopped saying goodnight. Dinners became quiet. Sometimes I'd eat alone. Sometimes she'd grab something with coworkers before coming home late. I stopped checking where she went. She stopped pretending to tell me. We existed like roommates with opposing schedules. And in the space between us, I continued preparing. I met with a lawyer, discreetly, during a lunch hour. Brought in the folder. He didn't even blink when I explained. "You're documenting this well," he said, flipping through the files. "Keep going. Don't let on that you know." I asked why. Because the moment she suspects, everything becomes harder. Let her stay comfortable. Let her feel in control. So I did. I let her believe I was checked out. Distracted. Burned out from work. I leaned into the distance, let it become a blanket over everything. She thought she had the upper hand. That I was too blind to notice. Meanwhile, I was already halfway gone. I cleared out my half of the closet. Bit by bit. Started keeping my essentials in the trunk of my car, not enough for her to notice anything missing, but enough that if I left tomorrow, I wouldn't need to come back. I withdrew from mutual friends. Stopped attending events with her. Stopped showing up for things she half-heartedly invited me to: gallery openings, office parties, weddings of friends I didn't really know. She stopped asking after a while, and that told me everything I needed to know. One night, she came home around midnight. I was on the porch reading. She smelled like hotel soap and cheap white wine. I didn't say anything. She sat beside me out of nowhere like nothing had happened. Have you ever thought about Italy? She asked. I looked at her. Italy? Yeah. Like living there for a year. Just hitting reset. I blinked. You serious? She laughed. Just thinking out loud. I nodded slowly. Maybe one day, I said. But in my head, I was already gone. A few days later, I moved my digital life to a new device. New phone. New number. I left the old one connected for appearances but redirected all important calls. I created a personal email. Updated bank accounts. My name was slowly disappearing from everything shared. One afternoon, I drove to the apartment in Santa Fe. Signed the lease. Paid 3 months upfront. I brought in a few bags, clothes, documents, my old camera, tools I hadn't touched in years. I stood in the tiny living room, staring at the blank walls, and for the first time in months, I felt calm. There was no furniture. No framed photos. No scents I didn't recognize. Just space. Air. Silence that belonged to me. Back at the house, April asked fewer questions. I stopped pretending to answer them. Everything okay? She asked once as I loaded my laptop bag. Yeah, I said, not looking up. And that was the extent of it. Because in her mind, she had already left me emotionally. She just didn't know I was leaving her physically. Every mile I drove away from that house, every new password, every hidden transfer, it was like building a bridge from a life I no longer recognized to one I could finally start claiming again. Quietly. Completely. Without a single wasted word. It ended the way it began, in the car. There was something poetic about that. Or maybe cruel. I'm still not sure. It was a Thursday afternoon, early fall. One of those strange days when the air smells like change, that dry, restless kind of wind that makes leaves twitch even when there's no storm coming. I had taken the day off to move the last of my things into the Santa Fe apartment. She didn't know, of course. As far as April was concerned, I was working overtime. She hadn't asked where I was staying. Hadn't noticed the suitcases in my trunk or the growing gap in the closet. If she had, she didn't say anything. We were both fluent in silence by then. We lived in it like it was air. That morning, she had taken the car. Her own had been in the shop for a week, something with the brakes, she said, and I hadn't bothered to argue when she asked to use mine. I let her take it without hesitation, not out of kindness, but because I no longer saw it as mine. Nothing felt like mine anymore except what I had already taken with me. What she didn't know was that I was already in the back seat when she slid into the driver's seat that afternoon. She was on the phone when she entered the car, juggling her tote bag, latte, and a pair of sunglasses. She never looked behind her. Just threw her things in the passenger seat, buckled up, and turned the ignition. And like before, like that morning, her phone connected to Bluetooth automatically. The car came alive. And so did the truth. His voice came through the speakers first, calm, lazy, laced with that easy confidence I now associated with deception. How's my favorite girl? She laughed, a soft, familiar sound. Too familiar. The kind of laugh I hadn't heard from her in months. Late as usual, she said. Stole Mark's car again. Feels like I'm committing a crime every time I touch the steering wheel. There was a pause. Then a deeper chuckle from the other end. You're lucky he's still that clueless, the man said. And then she said it. A sentence that would carve itself into my memory like it had been etched with a scalpel. She said my name. My poor, sweet, broken Mark, she cooed in a voice that made my stomach knot. If he knew half the stuff I've done. God. He still thinks I'm stressed out from work. They both laughed. I sat up slowly in the back seat. No words. No noise. Just movement. She screamed when she saw me in the rearview mirror. Slammed the brakes so hard the coffee exploded across the dashboard. Her phone flew out of her hand and landed face down on the floor mat. For a second, we were both frozen in place, her breath coming in ragged gasps, my heart pounding so hard it felt like it would crack my ribs open. I opened the back door and stepped out into the empty parking lot. She stumbled out after me. Mark, she called, voice tight, high-pitched, strangled. Jesus, what the hell are you doing? I didn't answer. I just stood there, staring at her across the open space between us. She looked wild, hair falling out of its bun, shirt stained with coffee, eyes wide with something between fear and realization. Were you in the car this whole time? She asked, incredulous. Still, I didn't speak. She stepped toward me, one arm outstretched. Listen, it's not what you think, okay? And there it was again. The classic line. I almost laughed. But I didn't. I just stared at her. She realized then that there was no fixing it. No lie that would land. No spin that could soften what had just come through the speakers. That moment right there in the lot was the true end. Not because of the words, but because of her face when she realized I'd heard them. She reached for me again. Please. Mark, can we just talk? I think you already said enough, I finally replied. My voice was calm, detached, like I was ordering coffee or reading a weather report. The look in her eyes changed, panic fading into something else. Something colder, like she was mentally retreating behind a wall, calculating. Rehearsing. I wasn't trying to hurt you, she said quickly. You have to understand, things between us haven't been good for a long time. I raised a hand to stop her. She fell silent, because she knew nothing she said now would undo what I'd heard. She could reframe it all she wanted, but there was no mystery left to unravel. I walked away, back down the block, past rows of parked cars and rustling trees, not bothering to look back. I didn't run. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just moved forward, one step after the next, like a man finally walking out of a burning building that had been smoldering for years. She didn't follow me. Later that evening, she sent a text. Please, let me explain. I didn't mean what I said. It came out wrong. Can we talk when you're ready? I didn't reply. She called twice. I let both ring. Then I turned off the phone completely. I wasn't interested in explanations. Not anymore. Because you don't joke about someone being broken unless you've already decided they don't matter. You don't talk about someone that way unless you've dehumanized them. And I think that's what hurt the most. Not the infidelity. Not even the secrecy. But the casual cruelty of it all. That I had become a punchline in someone else's fantasy. A man turned ghost in his own life. And somehow I had allowed it. The realization didn't crush me. It clarified everything. She hadn't just betrayed me. She'd stopped seeing me altogether. In her mind, I was no longer a partner. I was a placeholder. An obstacle to navigate. A body to keep in the background so she could live her double life without interruption. That night, I returned to the apartment in Santa Fe. I didn't cry. I didn't drink. I didn't even unpack right away. I just sat in the center of the empty room and breathed. I could still hear her voice. The laughter. That line about me being broken. But it didn't own me anymore. It was just noise. A final note in a song that had already ended. By dawn, I was gone. I left no note, no argument, no second chance. On the kitchen counter sat a sealed envelope containing screech asterisk TS, photos, travel logs, and a signed divorce agreement. No explanation, just facts. I had already rerouted my mail, closed joint accounts, and handed all legal matters to my attorney. She'd find out through official channels. I didn't wait for her reaction. I didn't look back at the house or the memories we'd built there. I drove to Santa Fe, to the small apartment I had quietly made my own. That silence, the one she thought meant I was broken, was now my freedom. And within days, the truth about her affair broke wide open. Apparently, Leo's wife had found her own evidence and went public. April's career began unraveling just as quietly as our marriage had. But I didn't watch it happen. I had already left the theater. In Galveston, I rebuilt. I opened the woodworking shop I'd always dreamed about. Quiet work, honest days. I didn't talk about April. Didn't need to. One afternoon, a woman named Savannah walked in asking for a custom shelf. She came back a week later to check on it. Then again, just to talk. She didn't ask about my past, and I didn't offer. We talked about books, old music, dogs. There was something easy in her presence. No games, no strain. Just space to breathe. For the first time in years, I wasn't surviving. I was living. I wasn't haunted anymore. April had become a closed chapter. What mattered now was the life I was building, one piece at a time, with my own hands. And for once it actually felt like it was mine.